Good morning and welcome to episode 45 of the Jaguar Report podcast. My name's Gus Logue, here with co-host John Shipley. Take two, John. How we doing?
I'm doing good. We're on episode 44, but other than your little time travel there, we're doing good, buddy.
Ain't no way. I checked it right before.
Oh man,
this is the first time I haven't asked you before the show in a while. The last June 26, 44.
What's the Simpsons meme? It was like, is it me who is out of touch? You're right. It is 45. Wow, I completely whiffed on that one.
Well, you've been butchering me in the polls for these ranking segments that we're doing, so I gotta take my win.
2-0 champ. I'm gonna get a custom belt, wrestling belt for it. Have it over my shoulder every time I dominate you in a ranking. This one's gonna be a bigger bloodbath than the last one.
Oh, you think so? I'm nervous about this one because I feel like it's way more subjective, and I don't know.
No,
we'll see.
No, right, there's right and there's wrong, and I'll let you know which one you are later.
All right. Well, we'll get to our rankings later. We've got a good non-football one today, but this is going to be our last show before training camp starts for the Jaguars. So we figured we'd start off with some predictions or things to watch. The team announced today I think there's 13 total training camp days that are open to the general public, and only one of them is only for season ticket holders. So you can go on their website to register and to go watch the team yourself. But John, what are you going to be looking for when training camp starts on July 26th for me?
Man, training camp is always a really unique experience. It's a grind, dude. Even just covering it's a grind. You get through the middle of it, and players are ready for it to be over. Coaches are ready for it to be over. Everybody involved in the process, even media, is like, all right, let's get this over with. It's really the entire season's a grind, but training camp and the middle part of the season are the two toughest parts, I'd say.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this is not a sponsored segment, but the Miller Electric Center. I'm looking forward to the new digs.
That's
really
true, yeah.
It's going to be the first training camp there. Last year's training camp was at Episcopal, which I honestly didn't mind. It was super hot, obviously. Wasn't exactly the biggest, facility for them to use. They didn't have a ton of amenities and stuff, but I felt like I could get way closer to the action than other Jaguars training camps. They had their old practice fields that aren't there anymore, but they would have two, full fields, right next to each other. And there are stands in an L. So there are stands right by one of them.
Right.
And then you can kind of see the other one, but you're just on one end zone.
Yeah.
So they would purposefully put everything in the far corner of it. So you need you can't go down there. So you would need binoculars to literally watch everything. And people would ask me, they were like, what was Trevor's passing stats for today? And I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't able to count them.
I literally posted a GIF of someone using binoculars today on Big Cat Country for training camp news, because that's kind of what it feels like. It's everyone's just up there in the stands, even though like you're saying, everyone's just kind of squinting to try to figure out something. So
I'm excited to see how the new one is. I'm knowing that it's a football facility. I'm pretty sure they'll have something built in to help them kind of hide from media, because every football coach, doesn't want media to be anywhere near them or the football team. But I'm excited to see it.
That'll be good. Yeah, it'll be the first time that media you got your own little room in there, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. We're so media's had a workroom at the. I don't know. Is it called Everbank officially? Yeah, I don't know. At the big dark dungeon that has a bank in the name of it. We've had media rooms in there before, but it's I wouldn't let Apollo, have that media room as his bedroom. So I'm excited for new media rooms. I'm excited for new. It really feels like things with them are I remember when I first got there in 2019. Obviously super excited to be on an NFL beat and stuff, but you could tell that it wasn't like a lot of other NFL teams. It was really Mickey Mouse type stuff, and it really now feels like they've elevated their game on the operations front.
Well, one thing that will be new is Calvin Ridley. I mean, he's been kind of had a fire off season so far, just with the amount of hype that he's gotten from media to coaches to fellow players to even like non-teammates like Devontae Adams and Manu. I was gonna say Manu Ginobili, Mohamed Sanu.
Devonta Smith, wasn't it?
Manu.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's had quite the offseason without having actually like done that much on the field, and so this will be just kind of another step closer to the action for him and us all getting to watch it. So I feel like he'll easily be the biggest player storyline from camp. But is there anyone else you're going to be keeping your eye on?
I've had several, like more than one Jaguars players, like tell me, like this dude's one of the best players I've ever seen, like live in a practice. And he like has like maybe a dozen practices with them under his belt. Like, any questions I think of him not being like I don't think anybody who's expecting big things for him is going to look stupid. I think he's like a real deal number one dude. And I mean, did you see that picture of him and Kirk with DeAndre Hopkins and Debo? He looks yoked, man.
Yeah,
he looks yoked, and he posted that he did like almost 19 miles per hour on the treadmill and stuff like that. He's going to be a monster, I think, and I'm excited for fans to see what we saw during the offseason with him. Whereas a lot of times, like maybe guys don't practice as well as they play. Like I can honestly say Zay Jones last year in training camp, he had a couple good days here and there, but he's not a player who's going to pop off in practice. That's very impressive. He's not a high-end athlete or anything like that. But when the game started, he obviously came through, had a career year. Christian Kirk, he was a little more exciting than Zay Jones in terms of practice, but he was another guy who he was just better in games than he was like in training camp and stuff. Whereas Ridley, like you can tell, he's like even just in a practice setting. I mean, he just moves differently. He's a bad dude. So I'm excited for fans to be able to see and be able to confirm with their own eyes that what everybody's saying about him isn't just rainbow pumping or sunshine pumping, right. whatever the phrase is.
As you said, like even compared to like his teammate receivers who are pretty fast themselves, like Agnew and Kirk, and like seeing Ridley in drills compared to them is like he's just a different cat and moves at a different speed. I agree. He does look bigger. Like I feel like whenever I see like highlights of him from the Falcons, especially like all 22 when it's zoomed out a little bit, he looks like skinny as a rail. And now it's like he's not DK Metcalf or anything, but he doesn't really feel like that skinny anymore either.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like the only reservation I really had about him after like the offseason that he's had was like just the fact that he's been away from the game for so long. But that's almost been like kind of gone away for me just based on like how careful the Jaguars are treating him. Like it's pretty obvious that he wants to go a lot faster. And Peterson said like multiple times, like we got to kind of slow the brakes on this guy and know what we're doing.
And like the fact that he, like I said, he's a wide receiver. It's not like if he was a quarterback. Like I firmly believe, among many reasons, the nasty man in Cleveland was bad last year was because he hadn't actually played an NFL game for a couple of years. And if you're a quarterback, that's got to be hard. But a wide receiver, I think he's going to step right in. So I'm excited to see that. I'm also excited to see the most entertaining part about training camp practices is always the offensive line, defensive line one-on-ones. Everybody always flocks to them. I really enjoyed watching them last year because Leon Searcy, I stood next to him watching them, and he would tell me, all the things the Jaguars tackles were doing wrong. And it was just cool to get that kind of insight. But, the one-on-ones is always the thing that people look forward to the most. And I'm looking forward to, Walk a Little and Anton and matchups against Trayvon and Josh Allen, I think are going to be like appointment viewing. And I know pads weren't on, but I know a couple of Jags coaches were really impressed with the limited reps that they saw Anton versus Josh Allen and some padless one-on-ones during minicamp. So that's something I'm really looking forward to, just seeing, how they really stack up. Because you can tell a lot about, whether guys are ready to go or not. Last year, Trayvon, his one-on-ones on the edge weren't very good. And then when they would slide him inside, he would absolutely destroy people. And that translated completely, to the field. So I'm excited to see how Anton holds his own at right tackle and how Walker does.
Okay. I'll be looking forward to just like trying to like feel out the vibes of everyone because I feel like since it's not like 100% effort or 100% speed, like I don't know, I'm gonna look for like just like who's like moving quickly and confidently, and mostly like Trayvon Walker and Devin Lloyd because I think both of them, especially Lloyd, but definitely both of them, like need to play a little bit faster and like think a little bit less going forward. And if they can do it in year two, like as soon as possible, then that'll be pretty huge for the defense. So like
Yeah.
seeing if they can like I don't know think less and move more quickly is kind of just their confidence level is what I'll be seeing.
I mean, this will basically be Devin Lloyd's first training camp.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty underrated storyline last year. Was like how
Oh,
he missed all of training camp with a hamstring injury, and so
100%.
even though he was a little bit of an older prospect, like those are extremely valuable reps.
Yeah, no, and it's like obviously mental reps and stuff, but it's more than just like sitting on the sideline and watching it. Like just the speed of the game. Like he was really thrown to the fire. It was like he was healthy and ready to go. Like the Falcons preseason game, and then the season started like 8 days later, and he was basically thrown to fire with like 8 days of healthy practice. And obviously, week one practice is nothing like training camp. So I think that'll be big for him. And shout out to Devin Lloyd too. I went to Shaquille Quarterman's football camp at Oakley High School. Clay County built. And there was a couple hundred kids there, and Devin Lloyd was actually out there too. Same with undrafted free agent linebacker Daquan Jackson. He's a Jacksonville native, but it was cool to see Devin Lloyd out there. It's clear that he was out there, one, to give back to the community, but two, because him and Shaquille Quarterman are pretty close. So it was definitely cool to see some like hometown guys out there really giving back like Devin Lloyd was.
Yeah, I think Devin Lloyd actually like hosted his own camp too in the past couple of days, like somewhere in Georgia. So
yeah,
I mean, definitely doing it in Jacksonville too.
I think that's one of the best things athletes do. Just the look on kids' faces, like when like they see these guys, because like if you're an NFL player of any status, you're bigger than life to them. So camps is always a really cool thing. They were like over 300 kids at Oakley's, man. It was wild. It really was. And I felt like I stepped into like a time machine because he had teammates from the NFL there, but he also had teammates from high school there, like old Oakley players and stuff. So it was really cool to see.
That's super cool. Yeah. All right. Well, my last thing, I guess, is looking at the tight end room just because there was a pretty big recent acquisition because the Jags.
Tight end one, baby.
Yeah, tight end Josh Peterson, who's Doug Peterson's son, who's bounced around a couple NFL teams, never played like a regular season snap. And then he was really good in, what was it, USFL?
There you go. Sound it out.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, USFL. There's too many leagues. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's why I was.
There are too many leagues. Yeah, I know. I'm with you. So, give me your opinion on the optics of it. It's a really like curious like case to me. Like, it's not the first time father and son have ever been on a team together. I mean, Tom Coughlin with the Giants, his son-in-law was one of their starting offensive linemen, and obviously it's been done before. But to me, it's so different because like if I'm thinking from the viewpoint of the guy who got waived, Leonard Taylor, like I'm probably a little pissed. But it's also like if he wasn't Doug Peterson's son, I mean he would fit on like he wouldn't look out of place on a 90-man roster for any other team, going into training camp. Like with his production in the USFL and being in NFL camps before, I mean he should be on a 90-man roster. So I think literally the only hangup is the fact that his dad is the head coach, and I don't think they would have signed him if he didn't have a good season in the USFL like he did. But I completely understand people who criticize it because I know nepotism, especially at the NFL level, is a huge thing. Mostly when it comes to coaching hires, front office hires, because the NFL has failed big time in terms of diversity. But I've also seen a lot of people, compare it to and ask, if the people who had pitchforks, me, I was double pitchforked for it during the yeah, I was, bro. I had pitchforks, I had torches, I was up in arms about the Tim Tebow signing in 2021.
Yep.
I don't think it's anything like that.
Yeah.
I think he is like 100 times more qualified. I still don't think he has any chance to make the team. Like I thought the Tebow thing was embarrassing, and I know players were offended by it and that it was a slap in the face because I've had NFL players who were on and off the Jaguars roster then tell me how much of a joke it was. And then he went out there, was geriatric on the practice field. The only thing he ever did of note was beat Joe Schobert in a winner-loser special teams competition. That's probably the most notable thing either one of them did with the franchise. And then he played the one preseason game and got absolutely destroyed. Who were they playing? The Cleveland Browns, I think it was.
Yeah,
he just got absolutely destroyed.
He got rocked on like one of those blocks. He like couldn't figure out how to block. It was pretty funny watching like the tape of him because he was just like so timid. Like it was like if like I was asked to go out and play tight end, like I would just be like pretending to put like some hands on someone, but like
he was terrible,
sort of getting in their way.
And like I get it, that was cronyism. This is probably nepotism, but Josh Peterson, he's not 34. He's not a decade removed from playing an organized football game. He's played the position before. His coach has some credibility, and he's literally been on an NFL roster before. Like you said, he hasn't played in the game, but Andy Reid, Sean Payton, and Kyle Shanahan have all coached him before. So I don't know. I see both sides. If you want to criticize it, I'm not going to argue against you. But if you compare it to the Tebow thing, I will argue against you because I will go to my grave saying that is one of the most embarrassing signings an NFL team has ever, could ever, or will ever make. And Tim Tebow does not belong on an NFL field again, unless he's like I don't even know what would constitute him being allowed to be on an NFL field.
Nothing. He's got to be like 37 by now.
He's like 35, 36.
He's 35. But like, what would he do? He was like, people were trying to figure out the answer to that question, like when he like was recently in the league, or not recently in the league, when he just got into the league.
Yeah,
for his Broncos stint. Like, what are you gonna do with him now?
Yeah, and I think it was the Patriots. No, it was the Jets that he was upset that he was doing things other than playing quarterback for them. So I don't know. Like I get the Peterson, maybe criticisms, but
I think you got a good point though about the like 53-man roster versus a 90-man roster. Like if he makes the team over someone, then like that's like clear nepotism probably, and like just not cool. But I feel like just for like giving him a chance in like training camp, it should be a cool story. And like just the Tim Tebow fiasco from 2 years ago has kind of like tainted that image of like it's just like a guy trying to give his son a chance. It's not giving his son like the full starting job.
And it'd be different if his son like hasn't played, like if it was 3 years removed from college and hasn't played since then.
Right.
And then his son was like, oh, my son was a Louisiana Monroe tight end 3 years ago. That'd be different, like he's actually been playing football, like somebody likely would have signed him, but I don't know. We'll see in training camp, obviously, how he looks, but just, on the surface of things, the only way I think it'd be a giant problem is with like, if you only keep 4 tight ends and you cut Garrett Prince for him, then I think you probably have to answer some things. But just being at training camp, I don't think it's a big deal, but I also get why anybody, especially, anybody who's ever experienced issues with it before is bothered by nepotism. And, speaking of family matters, that wasn't, a ghost or the ring. That was my lovely fiance, Sarah, trying to corral the pets. So great guest for the pod this week.
That was nice. I think that was like our first guest appearance in
it was
appearance.
It was.
That was good.
It was. There we go. Yeah. Well, see, our first guest is a family member. That's is a nepotism podcast.
This is all of a sudden a pro nepotism podcast, huh?
No. No.
All right. You ready to talk about some potential defensive tackle trade targets?
I am ready to talk about some potential defensive tackle trade targets after we hear from our sponsors. All right, Gus. It seems like defensive tackle is like one of the most stacked positions in the NFL, right now. Like we can talk about some of these rankings later, like ESPN. To me, the best like top 10 list every year is ESPN's top 10 list, not because like of its accuracy or anything, because there's always a couple rankings that make no sense. Like they put out cornerbacks today, and they had one person like rank Patrick Surtain as like number 10 cornerback in the NFL, and like you always get some wonky stuff, but it's cool because you're actually getting it from people in the NFL and stuff. So like you look at the defensive tackle list, and they're like somebody had, it shows you like the lowest, somebody like a defensive tackle was ranked by somebody, and somebody ranked Aaron Donald as the third best defensive tackle in the league. And on the surface, you're like, what the hell is wrong with you? He's an alien. But I also kind of get it. Like Quentin Williams and Chris Jones are freaking insane. So it kind of shows you how crazy the defensive tackle position is right now.
And then, Quentin Williams is ridiculous. Dexter Lawrence is that the guy for the Giants?
Yeah. Sexy Dexy.
Jeffrey Simmons was actually ranked third overall by the ESPN list, I'm pretty sure. And so, obviously, he's a big name for the rivals.
He's insane, too.
Yeah, he is. So I agree, but
Hargrave.
Right. Oh, man, that Niners defensive line, that was like the funnest free agency signing, I feel like, or the one that seemed like the most exciting in the first wave, because it was like, whew.
Yeah, it's definitely a stacked position, which kind of shows why it hurts when you whiff on it with guys like Taven Bryan, etc. Did you see Taven Bryan randomly catch a stray from
he's catching a stray from you. I guess it's not as random, but Taven's catching strays all over.
It was so mean.
Yeah, like the way he said it, like if you actually like listen or watch it instead of just reading the quote, like he just like really emphasizes the point and puts him down. It's pretty good.
And like it wasn't even accurate. Like they've put out like 6 or 7 NFL defensive linemen since Taven, but he's just tainted it. So it's it's good stuff. There are some great Taven Bryan stories I will tell in this pod one day, but what a guy.
Until that day. Today we're gonna talk about 2 of those top 10 guys, Aaron Donald and Quentin Williams, because there's kind of sort of maybe some whispers about them getting traded. And so the chances of them getting traded at all, let alone to the Jaguars, is probably like 0.1%-ish. But it's the offseason. So we're going to talk about what potential trades would look like for the 2 of them. For Aaron Donald, we can start with him, 32 years old, on a roster that's probably the worst in the league. So the whispers with him are that if/when the Rams are horrific this season, then he could be a potential move at the trade deadline. So, like, what do you think like compensation would look like for that?
What did the Rams give up? So how old is he?
Donald is 32.
Okay, the Rams gave up a second and third to get Von Miller, who was 32 at the time of that trade.
And Von was on like the last like 15 games of his contract. I think Donald has like 2 more years left on his deal, but he would probably want like an extension or retire either this offseason.
Yeah,
honestly,
that's a fair point. Like I'd obviously give up a first for freaking Aaron Donald. I'd give up a first and a future. First and a future pick. Like, it's just hard with the Jaguars because they literally can't trade their second, third, or fourth round picks because of the Calvin Ridley trade.
Right.
So it has to be like a first and a future, whatever. So the question is, I don't know. Like Aaron Donald has flirted with retirement. And he's like, it hasn't been the casual flirt. It's been like the, extensive, like Bobby Petrino type, flirting, secretary on the back of the motorcycle flirting. Like he's came real close, to retiring.
Yeah, at this point, it's been multiple off seasons of it, so that's always scary.
Yeah, so like I really feel like he could just walk away at any time, but he's also Aaron freaking Donald,
right?
So like, just saying you would only give up 1 first for him sounds insane. So I don't know. That's tough because, like, if you're the Jaguars, obviously either of those moves, Donald more so would be about the short term and trying to make this Super Bowl run happen. I would say that I think Donald can, be that kind of player who pushes you over the edge. Because when you go back to the Rams win over the Bengals, they don't win that game with a player who's 80% as impactful as Donald. Like they basically won that game because he completely, destroyed the Bengals offensive line at the game's biggest moments. So would you give up 2 firsts?
I was going to say the one that I thought of was Cam Robinson and a first rounder for Donald. Cause like, I don't know.
You're cheeky. You know that? You're cheeky.
Okay. For Cam, like I don't necessarily think the Jaguars are looking to or even want to trade Cam Robinson because I think they're like want to have like 3 solid tackles for the season. But with that said, like Robinson is in the last year of his deal. Or actually, I don't think that's true, but I think like it's super easy to get out of after this year.
He's got 2 years left, but after this year is like the out year.
Right. But so like if the Jaguars like get to like mid-season though and like they have a good record and they feel like they're like up like piece away from being like real Super Bowl contenders, then like and if like at that point like they've seen 4 or 5 games of Anton Harrison and Walker Little start and they're like super convinced by that, then maybe like they trade Cam Robinson. And honestly, the biggest thing to get to the end of the point is just that Cam Robinson has the biggest cap hit on the team for 2023. And Donald has a pretty sizable one too. So like you'd have to figure out like something with the contracts and like give up a little more. Like maybe throw in like Foley Fatukasi and just like have the Rams kind of burn his contract because like Donald would be like taking someone's place in the defensive line rotation.
That's such a weird trade.
I mean, at this point, I'm basically thinking like I'm like a 2K like trade or
first and Foley Fatukasi.
That's not what I said.
The first Cam Robinson and Foley Fatukasi.
Okay, that does sound as bad, but no.
We're playing loose with the rules now.
Cam and a first. I feel like the Rams.
That was so weird. You just threw Foley in there.
Well, it's because I was looking at like the cap space and numbers and stuff. I was like, he would maybe make sense. So
his cap number is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's wild.
His cap number for the production's insane. That's
like how much we talk about a Jaguars player to like how much he costs. Like the ratio for Foley is pretty wild.
Like they nailed last year's free agency class, but there's one contract that right now looks like that's the one.
Which like maybe it was just one season, maybe not, and that's still a great hit rate. But yeah. All right. So
my question: would you trade that same offer, but swap out Cam Robinson and Walker Little? Would you do that trade?
Ooh, see, now we're really getting somewhere because that's probably actually acceptable by the Rams.
Now we're getting to the nitty gritty.
Probably not, because I think if that happens, like the Jags are gonna like be like 6-1 or 6-2, and like feeling really good about themselves, and they're like, okay, our window is right now. Let's pull the trigger. Like that seems like, I don't know, your potential like blindside protector of the next decade alongside Trevor Lawrence for like a 1 or 2 year rental. I mean, it is like the greatest defensive player of my lifetime, but for a 1 year or 2 year rental of like anyone, I don't know if that's worth it considering like how valuable Trevor is.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair trade, but I wouldn't do it if I were the Jaguars.
So where you draw the line for Aaron Donald is somewhere between Cam Robinson and Walker Little.
Pretty much. I'm comfortable giving up like a first rounder for him though, because
that's like, fair enough.
If you get Aaron Donald, I mean, even without Aaron Donald, the Jags are going to be picking late in drafts for the next couple of years. But especially with him, like you'd assume you're going to have like a bottom 5 pick in the first round.
Would you give up 2 firsts for Aaron Donald? No players involved. You don't have to lose any tackles. You don't have to lose Foley Fatukasi. Would you give up 2 firsts for Aaron Donald?
Oh, I think I might do that. I saw PFF had this article the other day about like future cap space for teams, and the Jags ranked number 1 in this one category. That was basically like the value of players on rookie contracts right now. And when you think about it, it's true considering like Trevor and Tyson Campbell and Walker Little and Trayvon. The list is really long. They have a ton of like important contributors who are still on their rookie deals. And so I think because of that, like you can kind of talk yourself into like giving up 2 future firsts.
Yeah. And also, like you said, the fact that you're projecting those first to be like late first round, like the Calvin Ridley trade. If they re-sign him, they're going to be giving up a second rounder, but maybe that second rounder is in the Britton Strange, draft range. Like if you told me you could pick number 60 overall in last year's draft or have Calvin Ridley, I'm going Calvin Ridley. And that kind of goes like the same with Aaron Donald. Like, would you rather have the 30th pick in a draft or Aaron Donald? And I don't know. It's tough. So I think we're mostly in agreement on that. What about Quinnen? And my stance is that I would give up 2 first easily, and I'd even give up a day two pick on top of that. He has like a whole nother decade to go.
Right.
He's so much younger.
I wouldn't do 3 first, but I thought about 3 first. So
I thought about 3 first too.
I think 2 first round picks and then a round 3 pick seems because he's going into the last year of his deal, and his kind of situation is that he wants a contract extension before training camp starts, and he wants 25 to 30 million a year. So the Jaguars would trade for him, multiple first round picks for sure, and then give him a massive extension. So it would be going pretty much all in on him as the Trevor Lawrence of their defense, I guess.
He won't turn 26 until December.
What did you say?
He won't turn 26 until December either.
Yeah, and he's I feel like last year was kind of his breakout, where the first year or 2 of his career was a little bit quiet, at least compared to expectations for a top 5 or 10 pick. But last year he was a first team All-Pro, and deservedly so.
Yeah, I mean, last year he had 12 sacks, 28 quarterback hits, 12 tackles for loss. I mean, in the last 3 years, he has 25 sacks, 54 quarterback hits, 29 tackles for loss. So he's the rare defensive tackle that's in there's to me I'd say 5 defensive tackles who are impacting the pass and run game at an elite level. It goes him, Aaron Donald, DeForest Buckner, Javon Hargrave, and Chris Jones. And I think he's right up there with Donald just in terms of what he can do. If you're game planning for the Jets defense, you're game planning for Quinnen Williams. And I remember when he was coming out, there was that Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, Football Life, or whatever it was. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, they it showed Belichick coming to Alabama's pro day and asking Saban be straight up with me, who can actually play. And Quinnen Williams was the first dude he brought up, and he's one of the best players I've ever had. And you could see that in college, and to me, he's been just as good, if not even better, honestly, than I thought he would be.
Yeah, again, I feel expectations were pretty high. Maybe he underperformed in the first year or 2, but right now he's incredible. He's definitely the kind of superstar that elevates the performance of the players around him. So even though you'd be giving up a lot of resources for this one guy, he definitely helps multiple players in multiple positions, not just that one of 11 starting slots on defense. I got a trade situation for you. Who says no in this? The Jets give up Quinnen Williams, and the Jags give up Josh Allen. Both entering the last year of their rookie contracts. They're both just ascending star pass rushers. I would say Quinnen Williams is better and probably will be better, but arguably Josh Allen plays the more valued position on the edge.
Man, I don't think the Jets would do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if anything, the Jags would have to throw in a little bit more.
Josh Allen and a 3rd round pick for Quinnen. You doing that?
Yeah, I was gonna say 3rd or 4th.
Josh Allen and a 2nd round pick for Quinnen. You doing that?
Yeah, I guess. Because in that circumstance, it feels it's do that and then sign Quinnen to an extension and have him long term, as opposed to getting a comp pick for Josh Allen.
Yeah.
So
then again,
yeah,
Roy Robson Harris or Caleb Chase would be your starting edge defender.
I was about to say that. Yeah, edge is already the depth there is already a concern. So I have no idea what they would do. If they did either of these trades, and again it's a 0.001%, then they would also have to figure out some kind of trade for just a rotational edge guy at the very least. I feel like.
Yeah.
So
That's a tough one. Like I think either move, like Quinn or Donald, would put the Jags over the hump. I mean, I know it's going to be hard for the Jags to make a trade because of the Calvin Ridley thing, but like I think that it could still make like a Marcel Darius type move. Trade a day 3 pick for a player who's maybe on the outs with the organization. I'm trying to think who that would even apply to. Like, I'm not sure who the Marcel Darius's of this year's potential trade deadline group would be.
I mean,
But
you could do like Brandon Graham or Fletcher Cox because they're like used to play under Doug Peterson, but at the same time, their connections with like Philadelphia and that organization are like have to be way stronger than just their bond with Doug. It's possible.
I would give up a 4th round pick for Fletcher.
Especially because like, Philadelphia's defensive line is so deep since they just drafted who they just got Carter in the draft, and then they got Davis the year before, so 2 straight first-round defensive tackles.
How about this?
Hargrave, but
what would you give up for Cam Jordan?
Ooh, I feel like last year he like stepped off a little bit, but like he's so good. He's one of those guys. If you look at like sacks over the last like decade, he's like up there, like top 3 or 5.
Would you trade for Chase Young?
3rd for Cameron Jordan.
Chase Young.
That would be weird because like I feel like all the trades we've discussed so far are like win now moves, and then Chase Young would be like a weird like you definitely get better now, but it's also like more for the future. But yet, like I would trade for him. I don't know what like anything about his injury and like how serious that is, and I feel like it's a back injury, right? Which is
ACL.
Good. Oh,
Close.
Yeah, ACL. What's the recovery time for ACLs nowadays? Like 2 months.
He's supposed to be fine.
Yeah, I'll trade for Chase Young.
Okay. I feel like we've already talked about Budda Baker before. I won't even bring him into the mix.
That would be like defensive tackle where it's like, yeah, your defense definitely gets better, but at the same time, like your depth at the like 2 most positions in corner and edge are like still questionable even after this cool move.
Yeah.
It'll be weird.
Devin White. Yeah.
Okay. It depends on like what the asking price is because he just got ranked like 5th in ESPN's linebacker rankings, which is maybe like their worst ranking of like the entire series so far.
Well, then you see Shaquille Leonard at 6, and
yeah, I would still say Leonard is like. I would say Leonard is better. But yeah,
I don't think he's a top 6 Leonard in the NFL right now.
But is he a top 6 Shaquille?
Probably not.
Yeah, I think like Devin White could be like one of those pieces that's like the last fit in the puzzle of like a like super rotational guy. Like I'm thinking like Sean Livingston to the Warriors, where it's just like that one extra piece like takes them distance almost. And like Sean Livingston or like that kind of player, like Justin Houston would be another one where it's like an old vet is typically who you would think of. But I feel like Devin White, as long as you don't have too high of expectations for him, and again, as long as the asking price isn't absurd, like he could be a pretty like valuable, not role player because he'll play a ton of snaps, but that type of player for the Jags defense.
I mean, there's the Mike Caldwell connection too.
Right. Yeah. And like, I feel like they probably drafted Devin Lloyd to be what they wanted Devin White to be.
Would you trade a Devin for a Devin? How many Devins does it take for?
Yeah. What question even is that? I don't even know.
Would you? Devin White's about to have to get paid. Devin Lloyd, you got on cost control for the next couple of years.
Yeah, like as of today, I would not. If it's like mid-season and it's a clear upgrade and the Jags have lost hope on Lloyd, then it's like understandable. And again,
do you think he only gets until mid-season to make his case?
Well, it's just that you only get to trade up until mid-season. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we'll be right back after these next words from our sponsors, and we'll have some more Jaguars talk and even some non-Jaguars talk for you. All right, Gus, let me have it. What am I going to completely dominate you in verbally now? What am I gonna make you tap out? I want people to know I am the rankings champion. They love my rankings. People love my rankings.
I think I got too subjective. I was trying to do. I don't even know.
No,
you
were trying to be fair and balanced and unbiased, and none of that applies here. None of that.
Yeah. All right, you're 2-0. You got a 2-0 lead. It's gonna be a long series, my friend. All right, so we'll see what happens. You can talk.
Score.
I'll talk later. Do you know what the percentages like outcome was for the last one? I didn't look.
If you give me a minute, I could, but I'm
okay. All right, you look that up today.
I'm a little nervous for you.
Today, John and I are gonna do non-Jaguars rankings. Today, we're ranking.
I want to give you a chance.
Television characters of all time. So, as always, we're gonna go from number 10 to number 1, and then we'll have a poll out on Twitter at some point later today or tomorrow, asking you guys to vote. I will accept pity votes. I'm not beneath that. You can vote for me just to keep the series tally interesting.
All right, I got the results. You ready?
Vote just automatically.
All right. The results from the last one were Gus 25.2, John the Brain Shipley 4.8%, and the first reply is.
I already know what it is.
Bruh, Gus does not know how to make a ranking list. With like 4 crying emojis.
I wish I could say it's harder than it looks, but it's not that hard.
No,
I don't know, man.
In an incredibly easy field, it's one of the easiest things I've ever done.
I almost feel like it's tough getting like stacked up next to the brain because it's like if you looked at like my rankings by themselves, like I'm sure, or at least I would like to think that like no one would have an issue with them. But then when you're just comparing them one-on-one, then it's like, oh yeah, the worst guys, he sucks.
As the man Bill Shakespeare once said, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown.
The man Bill Shakespeare.
Billy Shakes.
Billy Shakes. I hadn't heard Shakes before. All right, oh my gosh, I'm losing it. We got to get through these rankings. You want to kick us off with your 10th?
Okay, yeah. Number 10. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm sitting down. Okay.
Probably the only good character on the show, Gata from Dave.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what he said it's like. God, I'm trying to remember what exactly he said his name stands for. But Dave is a terrible character. His manager's pretty good, but most of the characters in there, Taco from Odd Future plays the guy who makes his beats, and he's completely, but Gata completely makes the show. And one of probably the funniest characters I've, ever seen on a TV show. To me, a good character is somebody who either makes me feel a lot of things, whether that's, confliction, laughter, etc., or somebody I'd just like to hang out with. And Gata from Dave, I would definitely hang out with.
It's someone you'd want to hang out with.
Like, do you watch it at all?
No, I was gonna say like some of my friends keep trying to put me on it, and I'm like, I don't know, because like the Dave character is like, even though I like is a strong word. I think his music is fine, but like then like I don't really want to watch like 20 minutes of it at a time.
No, Dave Bird, like the character in the show, despicable, absolutely unlikable, horrible. Hate him. But like in like the last episode of like season 3, him and for some reason Brad Pitt are being like held hostage by like a crazy stalker fan.
Yeah,
and Gata comes over and they're trying to give him a bunch of hints that this girl's a stalker and stuff, and he's just vibing with her, just like kicking. He's like, "Oh, you guys are hanging out? Cool." He's awesome. So,
all right. Well, Maybe I'll watch the show just for Gata.
There you go. All right, let's hear your.
My number 10 is Red Foreman from that 70s show. Because when I was first putting together rankings, I wasn't really thinking about anyone from this show because like it is a good show, but none of the characters like really stand out a ton except for Red because he's like one of those like elite side characters. And the thing I love about him is he just has like one of the greatest running bits in TV history with like the
Foot in
your
your
ass. Yeah, it's like just the entire series. He's like coming up with different ways to say it. So I love a good bit, and that's one of the greatest bits I've seen. So Red 10th spot.
There's an episode where like Eric is mocking him, and he's like, "I wish I was an octopus, so I could put 8 feet in 8 different asses." And,
that's the best. Yeah, it's like when they do it back at him.
Yeah,
I forget the guy like with the fro, but he like will like say it to Red like before Red can get it out. It's good. It's one of those bits that just like grows so much. It's good.
My dad definitely wanted to be Red Foreman. He definitely wanted to emulate him, but he didn't get bald until we left the house. So it didn't quite develop. But all right, I'll give you that. All right, your number Red's a good call. Red's a good call. He was on my honorable mentions list.
Okay, nice.
All right, give me your number 9.
All right, my number 9 is Tim Riggins from Friday Night Lights. This is kind of the opposite of my with conundrum with that 70s show where like there was a lot of characters from Friday Night Lights I wanted to put on because I really like Coach Taylor. Like I want to be with him when I grow up, basically. Not actually, but he just seems like I always feel like he's like a great role model whenever I watch like the role model of television. And then I'm obsessed with Buddy Garrity. Like anytime he talks, I just burst out laughing. But to me, like Tim Riggins is the like best and most iconic character from the show.
You would pick somebody played by Taylor Kitsch.
I don't know. I don't know him from anything else. I didn't even know that was his name.
Yeah. I can honestly say I've never seen an episode of Friday Night Lights. And the weird thing is,
John,
I love the movie. See, I love the movie so much, I don't want the TV show to ruin
it. I mean, I'm biased because I'm like a football/sports fan, so like I'll eat up that kind of stuff pretty easily. But
sure, I'm not known to like football.
It's a genuinely good show. It's worth trying. Like it's also one of those ones where like if you watch like the first 2 or 3 episodes, like you'll know whether or not you like it and whether
I will say I'm a big Kyle Chandler fan, the guy who plays the head coach.
Yeah, he's great.
I do like him.
His wife is like honestly probably the best character on the show. She plays like his wife in the I was gonna say the president, the principal of the high school. And then there's like a young Michael B. Jordan at the end. There's that guy Breaking Bad with the blonde guy who's just like a weirdo.
Is it better than the movie?
I don't know. I don't know if I've seen the movie. So we're on
How have you not seen the movie?
Friday Night Lights. I gotta look
Billy Bob Thornton, Booby Miles.
Oh, yeah.
He can throw, he can run, he can catch.
And he can throw.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
That one.
You want to win? Put Booby in.
It's been too long since I've seen that though. I don't know. It's a great show though. Give me your.
I'll put it on rotation. I'll
just give it a try. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I'll get it. You got to convince Sarah to give it a try with me. I've been trying to get her on a new show, so we're gonna go with that one.
Okay.
All right, number 9. Have you ever seen Eastbound and Down?
No, I need to though.
Kenny Powers.
Yeah,
Kenny Powers, man. He funny as all gets out, man. Not a lot of bits I can repeat on the show.
Yep.
But definitely a show I think worth watching. Like just the entire premise of it, like a former like big name pitcher who is trying to relive his glory days, stuff like that. Yeah, and like to me, it's like every Danny McBride role since then is like based on Kenny Powers. So definitely recommend that. Don't watch it with young ears around. I definitely was exposed to it way before I should have been. Probably crafted some of my humor, but Good show. It's a good show.
Yeah, I feel like that's one that would definitely be on my list if I'd seen it because the few clips that I have seen are hilarious. But I don't know what's it on. It's just like one that I've never gotten around to. I guess.
HBO.
All right, well, got my parents' login, so I'll add that to the list.
Good
All right,
call.
what's your number 8?
All right, what's my number 8?
Yeah.
All right, Richie. This is a new one. This is a recent callback. Probably shouldn't be on there, but I don't care. Richie from The Bear. Have you watched it at all?
No, this is about to be a terrible segment if I just keep saying no. I haven't watched any of these shows.
Watch the first season and watch the hot dog episode. Richie, okay. He's like the perfect for a show based in Chicago. He's like the most Chicago character, on the show. And season 2, he has one of the best character arcs, and he's like him and the main character call each other cousin the entire show. He's not related to him at all. And then the main character's girlfriend in season 2 starts calling him cousin, and I'm like, okay, why are you both calling him cousin? This is starting to cross some gray areas, but it's a good show. I don't like the main Carm really at all, but Richie makes up for it. So I'm gonna go with Richie from The Bear. Yep.
All right, Richie from The Bear. All right, my number 8 is Abed Nadir from Community. Have you seen Community?
Oh, I love Community.
Yeah, Community is a great show. It's one of the best witty humor kind of shows.
I thought you were going to pick Chevy Chase's character.
Oh my god, I do love him. He had some behind the scenes backlash, so maybe it wouldn't have been cool for me to list him.
I was gonna say they don't love him.
Yeah, I wish that Chevy Chase was a good person because I love him as a character or as an actor. His Christmas is one of my all time favorite.
Mine too. It was after watching that show that I discovered that he was such a horrible person.
Yeah, pretty tough.
Nobody basically has ever liked him.
He does play a really funny character on the show, but Abed is really good too because he kind of starts off the show he's kind of socially awkward the whole show, but he starts off really socially awkward and he can basically only talk in movie quotes, which is pretty entertaining for a little bit. But then eventually, I don't know, he's just this genius who I feel like at least once an episode he would drop some piece of wisdom casually into conversation. So it's kind of hard for me to explain how much you can really appreciate it by watching it. But he's a really good and well written character.
Yeah, that's a show I recommend everybody to watch. I know they're coming out with a movie on it that will not have Chevy Chase's character, but nope. Yeah, he's definitely one of the highlights of it. I recommend anybody to watch the paintball episodes. It's good content.
Yeah, and the ones where they build forts all around, and all of the school-wide ones are really good.
There's probably Halloween. The Dungeons and Dragons one's really good too.
Oh yeah, is that the same one as the board game one where they roll the dice and it's different timelines?
That would be Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, well yeah. I don't know. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons.
I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. I just know it has the 14 side. I don't even want to call it a cube.
You called yourself the brain earlier, so I'm pretty sure you have played Dungeons and Dragons.
I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. What's wrong with playing Dungeons and Dragons? I've never played it, but it's fine. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Okay.
I'll admit I created a Warcraft character back in the day.
Okay.
That's about as far as my reach goes in that end.
All right. We don't need to get too far down this train of thought, but yeah. Good show, good character. That's a good episode.
Okay.
I think I'm up with number 7. April Ludgate from Parks and Rec, because this kind of goes with your theme of people I'd want to hang out with, because my girlfriend is basically a blonde April Ludgate. Not to brag, but also April's deadpan humor is just incredible. I feel her and Jason Bateman are the two people I can think of in comedy in the last decade or two who are just so good at dry humor. So yeah, April for me.
All right, my next one, Hal, Malcolm in the Middle. He's known for Walter White, but to me, Hal will always be his breakthrough role. The best character on the show by far. He is one of the most insane characters ever created. Every Hal episode was like a highlight episode. Like there's one episode where like they all forget the mom's birthday and stuff, and she goes to a batting cage of all places to vent, and they get there, they get her a cake, a bunch of clowns there and stuff, and she doesn't accept the gesture, and the one clown goes, "Come on, Wide Load, he's trying to do something nice for you," and he goes, "Call her Wide Load," and the next like 2 minutes just a slow montage of him leading his kids into like a physical fist fight with clowns as the wife just watches with like romantic music playing in the background. It's a good show.
Oh, dude. So, like, adults beating up little kids is like great comedy. Like, obviously, you have to know that it's like fake, but yeah, it's really good. Like Peyton Manning throwing footballs at like little kids on SNL, and then there's like a really good scene in Always Sunny, where like Mac and Charlie are beating up these little kids that like stole their bikes.
When-
It's good.
When Peyton's doing the tattoo and he's like, that's gonna look great. He whispers, "You're gonna have that forever."
Oh man, it's annoying how funny Peyton is sometimes. Like I feel like he had a really good like NFL honors monologue or something too.
Yeah.
Or like maybe it was like an ESPN commercial too. He's had some good stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, next, let's hear it.
What are we on right now? Did you just give me your number 7?
9, 10, 9. Yeah, I did.
All right, so you give me your number 6.
Don Draper. Come on, every man who's ever wanted to just smoke a cigarette while his personal and professional life just completely crumbles around him and wants to live a completely secret double life. I mean, come on, Don Draper was just cool. I don't blame anybody who doesn't like the show because it is like a slow burn. It's not exciting at all. Like the best moments are like really low key ones, but Don Draper is just cool to me. And I won't ruin how it ends, but how it ends is a pretty perfect for his character. And to me, still, it's how I think of most interactions I have on Twitter comes from Don Draper, where a guy in the elevator is like, "I feel sorry for you," and he looks at me and goes, "I don't think about you at all." True that.
That's good. Okay, this is me adding to my list to watch Mad Men.
Yeah, I like it, but I understand anybody who doesn't like it.
I like the people whose like television opinions I respect. Like say that Mad Men's a like top 5 show.
Yeah, and like in the early days of like my Twitter, like 2013, I remember like the entire TL still like be live tweeting Mad Men every week.
The good old days.
The good old days.
Wouldn't it be so cool if we just had like one app for all social media?
It would.
Then life would be like perfect.
I don't want to see any more of Elon Musk opinions. I
want to see like 90% of what's on my current time. Yeah. I still haven't made a Threads. I'm still holding back on that.
Just because JaguarReport on Threads. Yeah. You'll never see me on Threads, but you can follow JaguarReport on there, baby.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. That's what matters. Just got to get the content out. My number 6 is Thomas Shelby from Peaky Blinders.
Okay. I like that.
Have you seen Peaky?
I've seen the first season.
That's one. Oh, really?
Yeah,
I was going to say that's one that I'm always like, if you watch the first episode, like, I promise you'll be sucked in. And if you're not, like, you can drop it.
And I was.
You watched the first season, not anything else.
I loved the first season, and I was watching it right about the time when I moved, and Sarah and I moved into our house, and I just never picked it back. Like, I was busy at the time and just never picked it back up. But I do love the first season. I like that scene where, like, she sings him a song in the bar. He's like, "Happy Assad." Yeah, that's a good one. So
it just keeps getting better, man. The show, I mean. But, yeah, Thomas Shelby is, like, one of those characters where you can just like kind of like feel his power, feel his presence in the room, even when he's not talking. Yeah. And like, just one of those actors who can like do so much without really saying a word. So yeah, I was also thinking about putting his brother Arthur there instead, just because I like Arthur a lot. And I think he's also like, maybe not as talented of an actor as Cillian Murphy, but Arthur's pretty good too. But yeah, it's really
Can I give you my Can we do our 5 through 1 and one punch and see who has the top 5 we prefer?
Sure.
Okay. All right. From 5 to 1. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Hank Hill, easy. Number 5. Number 4, George Costanza.
Okay.
Number 3, Jesse Pinkman.
Okay.
Number 2, Larry David as Larry David.
Okay.
And number 1's obvious. I don't even got to say it.
Yeah, you don't have to say it. Okay.
Tony Soprano, the big guy. Hey, Tone.
Hey, Tony. I was just going to try to keep going and not say it at all. With the assumption that that's who it was. Because I got
Tone.
number 5, Dennis Reynolds. Just Always Sunny's my all-time favorite thing to watch, and he's my favorite character. 4, Michael Scott, U.S. Office. 3, Walter White, though I considered putting Jesse there instead. Well, Walter White. 2, George Costanza / Larry David. And then number 1 doesn't even need to be said. The big guy.
I love the Larry David Jordan, like him basing it on himself, because when you get into Curb, how often he like calls back to it is perfect. Like when they're trying to do like the Seinfeld reunion and he makes Jason Alexander mad, so he won't come to it. And he's like, I can play George. I am George. And and when he he has an entire, I think it's like the first season, like Larry's like wife is trying to get him to basically go back to work, stop just sitting around the house. And his idea is to make a sitcom for Jason Alexander where his character is known for only being known for one role. It's perfect.
So good.
The thing is, I know a George. One of my best friends from high school and college. He love him to death, but so many George-isms, and I feel like we all know a George.
Great. One of my uncles reminds me a little bit of George, just in his mannerisms, the way he sighs and stuff like that. But I feel like Larry David's just such a comedy genius, and the fact that he's responsible for Seinfeld basically, and then Curb, and it's just I don't know, one of those guys that kind of changes how shows are made, or just how the industry is done. So I definitely wanted to get him up there.
I would consume any Larry David content. I didn't really like the Larry David-less Seinfeld seasons, and one of the funniest quotes I've seen this year about anything was, Cheryl Hines, who plays his wife in Curb, is married to RFK Jr. and RFK Jr. gave a quote to, I don't know if it was the New York Times or the New Yorker. It was something like that, where he was like, I felt a lot of support from Cheryl's friends, especially Larry David. And they reached out to Larry David, and Larry David was like, yes, I love and support him, but I don't support him. That's perfectly Larry David. So,
dude, he's hysterical.
Well, we will see who the people like the most, but I will get on Friday Night Lights thanks to you. Gus, I can say that.
All right, sounds good. I will get on one of the 5 shows I wrote down. Because I'll start with Mad Men, because I feel like that's probably the best show that you said that I haven't watched. So,
and when we are back for training camp, there will finally be enough football things going on that we don't have to talk about our favorite TV characters. It's that point of the summer, folks. There is nothing going on right now. Literally, the biggest story is the Jaguars signing Josh Peterson.
Right. Or I feel like the biggest story is Evan Engram, because his contract extension date is in a week, and it's we haven't gotten there yet. It's just looking forward to it.
Let's go ahead and give our predictions on that before we hop off. Gus, do you think Evan Engram signs a new contract, or do you think he plays on the franchise tag?
Okay, hot take of the show. I think Evan Engram plays on the franchise tag not just in 2023, but also in 2024.
Woo-wee!
That's a good one, yeah?
Write it down.
All right, I'm
write it down. I don't think I have a hot take of the show. My hot take of the show is that Trailer Park Boys sucks. You like that show?
I've seen 5 episodes. It makes me laugh when I watch it, but
I hate it.
I haven't seen a lot of it.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
I feel like it's got to be just from the little I've seen, similar humor as the one about the old pitcher, Eastbound and Down.
Go to hell.
It's not similar at all. It just seems like similar like ambiance or something.
Maybe to a degree, but I don't know. I don't like how it looks. I don't know. I just not a fan of it. I think Canada could have kept that one. I think the Mounties deserve some disrespect for letting that one get out.
All right, well, 2 scorching takes on this week's podcast.
My take on Ingram, I think he plays on the franchise tag, and I think he plays for a different team next year, just because I don't know. I think they're going to use the franchise tag on either Calvin Ridley or Josh Allen. Don't ask me how the franchise tag would affect the Calvin Ridley trade compensation, because I don't know, and to be frank, I'm not sure they know. I have no I that's a scenario that's never been done before, so I'm pretty sure the NFL would have to figure it out on the fly, because like the stipulation is they owe him a second if he signs like a long-term contract. But what if he gets franchise tagged?
Because the draft pick would be a 2024 pick. So if he signs an extension like in 2025, would that be like the biggest galaxy brain move ever? It was already kind of like a big galaxy brain move to trade for Calvin Ridley with those like conditions at all. But if you can actually like sneak through the cracks like that too, yeah. Every running back in an off-season video.
Gus, you got anything else for us before we depart until training camp, my friend?
See you at training camp, buddy.
All right. Well, I am John Shipley, my co-host Gus Loeb. Thank you for listening to the Jaguar Report podcast. We'll be back together in a few weeks. I'll be back, solo next week, after the Evan Ingram decision, just a little mini pod to basically talk about Evan Ingram. But Gus and I will be back in 2 weeks to talk about the start of training camp and how I am 3-0 against them in our rankings. If you vote for Gus and not for me, don't bother listening next week. Thank you, everybody.